Happy New Year, folks! Today's something of a landmark for the channel, since it's now exactly a year since I uploaded my first video, kicking off this series of painting up and collecting my dream army of 6th edition dwarves. And with that anniversary, it felt only fitting to get everything out on the table and survey all the progress I've made on the painting and collecting front. Before you say it, yes, in that first episode I did say, rather optimistically, or perhaps naively, I'm not sure how quickly I'll be able to work on this over the year, but my aim is by the end of the year to have everything painted up and fieldable. No prizes for pointing out I might have missed that deadline, by quite a large margin, but hey, I'll get there in the end. So far it's 62 models painted, don't mind the tag-along extra ironbreaker. But how big a dent does this represent in the painting backlog, and has it outpaced the growth of my pile of opportunity over that same period? Well, I imagine the painted figures are the reason many of you have clicked on this video, so I guess I should start there. I'll begin with some of the troops. Here are my 21 Ironbreakers, the first unit I completed for the army in fact. At the start of the old world, going wide seemed to be the thing, so the extra one would have let me do 3 ranks of 7, but in the end I've stuck to more classic unit proportions. Behind them are 20 Thunderers, sadly a bit outclassed in games it seems by Quarrelers, but hey ho. One sculpt's actually in the wrong pose for the second rank of the unit, given he's aiming his handgun directly at the poor fellow in front, so I tracked down another one to finish the unit, but didn't get quite around to finishing him yet. The final big block are 16 Rangers. That's 5 more than I'd had at this time last year. I did mention back then wanting to increase the unit size to something more meaty than just 11 figures, and given how much of a pain it can be to find these models at a reasonable price, I'm quite glad I snagged them when I did. They really are some lovely sculpts, these ones. Slightly earlier figures than most of the range actually, by Michael Perry for the most part, but the history of these models is a bit complicated with all the various re-releases and additions in terms of unit champions. So this is a perfect time to add that if you are interested in the story of this wonderful range of miniatures, then do give the series playlist a look, linked in the corner of the screen now. For each unit you'll find some videos going through the sculpts in a bit more detail and going back over the history and release of the models. In terms of heroes I have Crag the Grim, also by Michael Perry, later repurposed as a generic runesmith in 6th edition. A Dwarf Lord, this one's the only 6.5 edition figure in the whole collection, sculpted by Felix Paniagua. And the limited edition Battle Standard Bearer from the 6th edition Army box. This was still in the post to me at the time of recording that first episode last year, so I guess he was technically the first acquisition for this roundup. And not to forget at the back those 2 vehicles, the subject of my most recent update video. I picked up the Gyrocopter set, still in its original box at a good price fairly soon after recording that first episode, and then I got the Bugman's Cart of course when GW re-released the set with the drop of the Arcane Tome. If you're interested in the hobbying side of the project, then you'll find another playlist on the channel, also linked in the corner of the screen, where I have a painting tutorial for Ironbreakers, which goes through my process of painting metal armour across the collection, one for the Dwarf Lord showing how I approach skin tones, a basing tutorial for the 3 characters, and the process of gluing that gyrocopter together. So, just to tally everything up at this point, from the 62 figures painted so far, 8 were new purchases, plus that 1 half-finished Thunderer, while the remaining 54 were part of the original collection, as it stood a year ago today. Speaking of which, here's how that backlog is looking. In progress at the moment is the Anvil of Doom. I've been getting most of the metallic base coats finished off, so that should be the next thing I finish. The other model on the go at the moment is a Battle Standard Bearer I've converted from a Bugman's Ranger. A few years back I ended up with a loose BSB standard bit, after it had been attached mistakenly to a Longbid figure, so given I toyed with a few lists using a crossbow-wielding BSB in my block of Rangers, I thought I might convert something a bit special for the army to keep it all WYSIWYG. The Ranger himself had a snapped standard in any case, so no great loss on that front. I just snipped off and drilled out the remaining standard pole from the miniature's hand, glued in some brass rod that I cut to length, and mounted the replacement BSB on top. It's at this point I realise I need a bit more space on the table, so excuse the slight reshuffle of everything. Other models still to paint are one Dwarf King on shield bearers, the original King Alric sculpt, some artillery, being a cannon and an organ gun, plus their crew of 3 dwarves each, a box of warriors, 12 miners, 17 hammerers, the 7 conspicuously shiny ones being more new acquisitions this year, and last but most certainly not least, 16 Longbeards. I need to summon up the courage to do those sculpts justice at some point. Not on the table is a bunch of extra warrior/quarreler sprues, with the ones in the box bringing me up to about 40 of those minis in total, and a second Bugman's cart. That one's still in its nondescript GW online exclusive box, so didn't seem worth showing. To update the tally then, that's another 9 miniatures added between the spare BSB, the hammerers and the cart, bringing me up to 59 remaining metal dwarves and 40 plastic ones to paint. So, where does this put me in terms of the end goal of finishing an entire collection of the original 6th edition dwarf range? And just to clarify what I mean with this goal, in terms of completing or fulfilling that childhood army I dreamt of, it's all of the figures for units, including the original 6th edition army book that I want to finish off. So I'm not going to worry too much about Slayer Pirates here. Well, never say never, I suppose. Anyway, my various predictions about what was likely to reappear in metal with the Old World Dwarf launch ended up being, for the most part, correct. The Flame Cannon and Slayers were pretty safe bets for a re-release. The Flame Cannon never got a new sculpt, so it was still the original 6th edition metal one that I expected to see, and the 6th edition Slayer range got carried over into the 6.5 set with the addition of a few further sculpts. So this left me pretty confident that both would become available through GW as re-released metal sets, at a lower price than they could be had on eBay. And so it came to pass. The Slayers in fact are a mix between some classic Troll Slayer sculpts, a classic Demon Slayer, used as part of the Slayer Command in 6th edition, and the 6/6.5 edition Slayer sculpts. I'm not entirely sure which exact sculpts are included in the set. Some promo shots of painted figures include one that doesn't seem to be on the web store product photos, so that'll remain a mystery until I get around to ordering those. The Bolt Thrower and Stone Thrower both received updated sculpts for the 6.5 edition, so there was very slim chance we'd see those. But they're not too hard to track down still on eBay, so I'm fine with those. I wasn't as sure with the Doom Seekers and Goblin Hewer. We did get the models, which is a relief, since those used to command a high price. Either way, they were later releases, falling between the 6 and 6.5 army books, plus I'm not as drawn to the whole Slayer side of the army, I guess, so they're not a big priority at the moment. We did have one pleasant surprise for heroes, at least. The original 6th edition Runesmith came out on Made to Order alongside Ali Morrison's 6.5 sculpts. Didn't expect to see that one in there. Not so lucky for the 2 Engineer figures or the Lord with Great Weapon from 6th edition, but that was wholly to be expected, both having received numerous variant sculpts for the 6.5 range to match the style of the updated plastics. Now, what I definitely didn't see coming was Bugman's cart. It is a novelty in the context of this collection, being a much older figure than the rest of my army, and the same is true for the Imperial Dwarves, but nice to have them. So that's where we stand. Apart from the 2 remaining bits of artillery, it's mostly sets that are available through GW or individual character sculpts that I'm left to track down. And with that, the only thing left is once again to wish everyone a very happy 2025 and the best of luck with all your hobby projects. Until next time.